Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, an educator, a women's fitness mindset and body image online coach. Today, I'm chatting with a mind and body coach. Her name is Morgan. For those who don't know Morgan, she's helping women on their unique path to lead a life filled with full of confidence and self-acceptance. Now, very similarly to my line of work, Morgan helps her clients through incorporating inner work and diving beyond just exercise and nutrition to help them explore their limiting beliefs, their relationships with food, movement, body, and themselves. And I feel in my intuition that this episode is going to blow your mind. So if you are just starting to listen to this, hold on tight because you're in for a fucking ride, guys. Morgan, thank you so much for joining me, babe. And I want to lead this conversation by asking you what led you to this path of discovery.
I just want to say thank you for the epic introduction. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you. Honestly, it started with my own personal journey. I've always loved health and fitness. And so when I kind of started to get into it, that was kind of my guide. I was like, I want to do this for me. And then along the way, I was just noticing all of these things that were stopping me. I had a lot of, perfectionist tendencies with my journey. So it had to look this way. And I got so frustrated when it didn't. So I kind of really started this journey and I was like, this is holding me back. I have this vision and I have these goals and I just can't seem to get there because every time I make traction, it feels like it just falls apart. So I really noticed that I had to do the inner work on myself to overcome that and really start to get to where I am today.
The perfectionist tendencies, I can relate to this so much. I was actually sharing this with my mastermind girls this morning about how we don't really realize how we're affected from childhood in regards to the actions that we make these days. And I would love to know, where did those perfectionism tendencies came from?
Definitely from school. I was a high achiever, but to the point that I would put myself, and it was really self-inflicted, a lot of stress being it has to look this way, it has to be done right, there's one way to do it and I need to do it that way. And then I kind of got into a bit of a cycle with it that was rewarded. I would do it, do well, and I was like, this is the key, I have to keep doing it. And then that followed me into uni and beyond, and it just kind of got bigger and bigger to a point where it didn't serve me. It was honestly just holding me back because I was almost so afraid to start something for fear of getting it wrong.
Yes. Oh my God. I can relate to that so much. It takes me back to school as well. If I wasn't getting higher grades, I would be, told that it's not good enough or you could have been better. So I was always a high achiever. And you know what, as a recovering perfectionist, I know how hard it is to want to do something, but then you hold yourself back because of that fear of what if it goes wrong? What if it fails? What's something that has helped you tap into that habit change?
I guess the biggest thing was just taking massive, messy action, just starting and knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect and realizing that there's so much more growth and learning from making little mistakes and not seeing them as failure, but seeing them as cool, I tried something, let's see how I can make this better over time. And honestly, it sounds a little bit funny to say, but I just think of myself when I was younger and I would try something, get it wrong, and go again. If you think of yourself riding a bike, you never nailed that first go, but you just kept going back. And I was at what point did I stop being I just won't try at all? So just almost reminding myself of no, great things come when you learn and you grow and you change that mindset. That was huge for me.
I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that because it makes such a big difference from stepping out of that comfort zone, knowing and willingly enough to trust yourself, knowing, okay, let's do this and put all the shit behind us. But it's hard. And like you said, those thoughts come out in your head. And I'm sure you've dealt this with your clients around nutrition and training. What are some things that have helped you, but also your clients navigate around that?
Biggest thing is honestly being just awareness of that that's the pattern in the first place, because it was kind of like for a lot of my clients and myself included, like hidden behind a like I'll just start again on Monday, or like, oh, today's wasted, I've ruined it, what's the point, I'll do it another day. So just bringing forth that awareness of like, actually this is my pattern, and also knowing when it shows up, like what kind of emotional state am I in, or something, what is like almost triggering, or what event is happening that's leading into that like mechanism in the first place. Like, why is that my reaction? So that's the biggest thing, just building an awareness of like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been doing this whole time. That is honestly such a big step.
And speaking of self-awareness, because let's say no one, well, not no one, but let's say we get someone new on this episode, and they're like, how the fuck do I know what self-awareness is? Like, where does someone start by realizing what the patterns that they're making, or the behaviors that are holding them back?
First thing is honestly just to start noticing that, like in a dialogue, that little like chatty voice that you hear in your head, and just taking notice of what it is. If you are someone that's really struggling with, I don't even know that I've got a voice in my head, the next cue is like, look at your emotions. Look at when an emotion starts to come up. And that is honestly like a telltale sign that you've got some voice in your head kind of debating something back and forward.
I love that. And emotions are big, especially for women.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And that's like, I guess another part of my journey is I'm a very analytical person. I'm really in my head. I'm like thinking things through. So it almost was a journey of its own to actually reconnect with, what am I feeling? Not trying to suppress things, because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't feel that. Like, it's bad to feel angry, or I shouldn't be feeling sad. Like, big girls don't cry, just don't cry. So it was a journey of itself, just bringing back to actually, how am I feeling?
And you know what? Let's say someone is feeling all the feels, and, going from like sad to anxious to overthinking to self-sabotaging. Again, it comes down like, how can they navigate around what's real and what are the stories that are making up in their head?
I want to say the first place is honestly to look at it with compassion, because I've been the person to straight away judge myself for having certain emotions and being like, don't think that, or trying to suppress them or get rid of them, being like, oh, I don't want to be overthinking and I don't want to be stressed. And that has just made the issue, all that emotion, so much bigger, because then I've like dwelled on it and almost keep reliving the same experience. So coming at it with compassion, that it's okay to have that human experience. We don't need to do something straight away to cover it up or get rid of it or fill that space with something else. Like, sometimes it is okay just to sit with that feeling and let it have its course. It only takes 90 seconds for that emotion to like physically go through our body if we let it. If we suppress it down, we'll just like live it and live it and live it, and keep, like, we could go the whole day still kind of feeling that way.
When was there a time where you had a similar feeling to that and you suppressed it and you just noticed yourself in like that cycle?
For me, it's always if I'm stressed or overwhelmed, I will just try and get rid of it and rationalize the hell out of it and be like, I'm not stressed, I'm fine. All of those things, like, that's okay. And then I almost willow in it more. Yeah, for sure. Those emotions, like 100%, I will just sit in that all day. And it's like, that's where like procrastination comes in, and I don't get anything done because I literally just can't get out of that emotion.
Yeah. And then we end up just being way too much in our own head as well.
Yes, a place I'm so familiar with. Yeah.
Me too, to be honest. Like, after diving into this work over the last few years, I've noticed how analytical I am, just like yourself. And for those who are into the energies, like, I'm a very masculine person when it comes to business and life. I do have feminine tendencies, but we obviously know the masculine side is more the analytical side, like the go-getter, the driven. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just find myself like tiring myself out way too quickly because of that.
Definitely in the past, like, that's something I've made a conscious effort to work through, especially in this part of the year. But previously, especially when I was studying 100%, I lived in that. Like, I didn't even know like what feminine energy felt like in that period, because I was so like, got to work hard, got to get things done. And I'm sure like a lot of people can relate on their fitness journey. Like I've got to do the training and do the nutrition and I've got to drink all this water. And it's just so like go, 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 very rigid, very, very just demanding and structured and routine that we just like fall into that so naturally.
What's something that helped you to, you know, navigate more into that, like that flow of the feminine?
Allow myself to rest and not feel guilty. I think sometimes we have a bit of a like an unconscious agreement that rest is lazy and rest is bad and rest is unproductive. So I'd almost feel bad just like having a Sunday to myself and be like, this is my day just to reset and chill. I felt so guilty. I was like, I should be doing something. There's something to do. So just allowing that day was like the biggest step for me.
Rest is so imperative to a lot of people. And I can definitely resonate with you not feeling guilty about actually taking time off. Again, you know, it's also because of the type of industry that we work in as well. It's like very go, go, go. You have to get all the stuff done, wake up early, finish late. And like sometimes when you look at it, you're like, wow, I'm really exhausted from this.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just not a good way to keep going. Like you can do it for short periods of time, but when you're living in that constant state and you're not actually giving your nervous system rest, like you're going to get sick and all these things are going to happen. And it can be so avoided if we almost jump on top of it before it happens, like regulate that stress and give ourselves that rest before the point of being so exhausted and burnt out. Our body is literally telling us to stop.
At what point did you find yourself on the verge of burning out and then you were able to catch it and be like, all right, let's take it back? What are some action steps that you were able to help yourself around that?
First step I did actually was really get a good morning and evening routine so that it was actually winding down at the end of the day, not just like on my phone and doing work up until the very last second and then being like, oh yeah, bedtime now, like actually winding down and giving my system time to down regulate and things like that. That was huge for me. And then the second step was actually checking into myself in my work hours, because I was so autopilot in that time and I was building up all of this stress without being aware of it. So now I actually check in throughout the day. And I really recommend this like all my clients as well. Like, what are you doing in your 9 to 5? And that's been like such a big eye opener for so many of my clients.
I want us to dive a little bit deeper into that morning, evening routine. I'm a big person about routine, but we've also just been talking about how sometimes it can feel very rigid to some people. You know, they're already doing like the 9 to 5 job. And now in their eyes, it feels as if, oh, I have to do another thing for myself to take care of. And it's so interesting because I literally had this conversation with a client of mine this morning and she's doing all the things and taking care of all the people. And then I was just like, cool, like what can we do for ourselves in the morning or in the evening? And you could just see the frustration in her eyes going, oh, I do not want to do another thing because my to-do list is already way too fucking high. What's something that you would recommend for those who are feeling that way?
The biggest thing, and this is what I learned and then really passed on to my clients, is to remove expectations of what those routines should look like. Like that's where my perfectionist came up, and it was like, oh, the morning routine has to look like getting up at 5 a.m. and then sitting down and having like a nice drink and then reading or journaling a little bit and then meditating like a little bit if I can. Like it just got so unrealistic that I didn't even want to do it in the first place, and it had to look like this, and if I didn't do it like that, it was a failure. Like why did I even bother trying it all? So working with my environment and knowing that even just something for 5 minutes is enough. The whole purpose of that morning routine is to put you in a certain state. It's not to tick off a to-do list. It's not to be like, yep, I journaled, yep, I meditated, yep, I got ready for work and did all of these things. It's to put you in a state so that you feel like you can absolutely like nail this day. Like it's going to be so amazing. It's your day. Like that's the whole point of a morning routine. So being fully present in whatever you're doing, whether it's literally just 5 minutes of just like breathing or 5 minutes of like mirror work and like look in the mirror and be like, you are a boss. Like this day is going to be absolutely amazing. That's all it has to be. Everyone can have 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes to do that, you've got to really recheck what your day looks like, because you probably need it more than anyone else if your day is that hectic.
Mm.
And then when you have more time, keep going. Like if that 5 minutes isn't enough, like keep going, but set something realistic so that you're not talking yourself out of, oh, I don't have time, I don't have 30 minutes. You can always say to yourself, I've got 5. Like I've got 5 minutes. That's been huge.
And 5 minutes is easy. Like when you put it into perspective, like 5 minutes is nothing. Like most of us spend more than 5 minutes on Instagram.
Oh, easily. Yeah, we don't want to look at those numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or, we have a tendency to, at the end of the day, I love this because I come across this so many times where people are like, oh yeah, my evening routine is to watch TV before bed. And not to diss anyone who does that, because I've been there and I'm guilty of sometimes doing it. Your brain's you're thinking you're switching it off, but realistically you're not. You're just mindlessly looking at something.
Yeah, you're overstimulating yourself. And I've been guilty of that too. Even in a rest break, if I'm like, oh, this has been like big and I've been working and I'm having a break, I'll be like, oh, cool, I got my phone. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm literally just overstimulating while trying to rest. The same thing at night, like you just keep going. And at nighttime too, you're in such almost like a hypno state, and you're so susceptible to the things that you're exposing yourself to. So when you're scrolling social media and you're watching TV, like that's all going straight into your mind. And that's can be quite a tricky line when you really take all of that stuff in and you're not really aware of the messaging behind it as well.
What has helped you to disengage, with the social media and the TV before bedtime?
I use the do not disturb. I love that feature. It has been great. And then not everyone has to go this far, but I got some red lights. So I turn like all my like artificial lights off, like phone, TV, and I get so sleepy so quickly. Like it's fantastic. Like I can be asleep in 5 minutes. Like it's great. It's so good.
I have red lights at home as well. For those who do know that like there's such a thing called as red light therapy as well. But you can also get like red light bulbs, and that obviously helps to reduce the stimulation that we're getting, and not only benefits you with a good night's sleep as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like I feel so rested. Like I'm someone that really values sleep, and this has just been like a great thing. So yeah, by like 8:30, like those lights are off and the red lights are on, and it just feels so good. And then I'm really flexible with what I do before bed. I'm not like, oh, it has to be journaling next. I'm like, if I want to read, I'll read. And if I want to journal, I'll journal. If I just feel like chatting with my partner, then I'll just do that. It doesn't have to look like anything. And that has been such a key change.
Andrew Huberman was talking about this not long ago on his podcast, stating the changes in our brain, but also obviously through our visual with the lights that are stimulating us through the evening. And we know obviously like certain lights affect our natural body clock. And what Morgan and I are chatting about is making people realize that we need to, either using like candlelight or really switching off your LED lights at home, because red light's going to help to stimulate more melatonin. And we know that melatonin helps that reoccurring hormone to make us fall asleep. So if you're someone who's suffering from, sleep issues or insomnia, and you're realizing, oh, maybe it's the effect of the lighting around your house, maybe it's the constant stimulation from your phone or the TV, it'd be a good time to just reassess that. Because again, as Morgan, as you said, if we're hindering our sleep, how else are we supposed to be feeling not stimulated? How else are we supposed to be feeling refreshed the next day to move on with whatever priorities we have?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's just the little things that make such a big difference.
Yeah.
So, because if you're someone that does really struggle with going to bed early, sometimes waking up earlier so that you're naturally a little bit more tired at night is something you can do as well. Like you don't always have to throw all the strategies at nighttime. Sometimes throwing them in the morning, you'll just naturally get that natural sleep cycle, and you will start to wind down. Give it a couple of days, and it's honestly like so amazing. You feel so revitalized once you've had good sleep. It's just putting you in that state of like really resetting. And if you're someone that's really into, like I'm sure everyone listening is into going to the gym and things like that, like you need that rest, you need to get into that deep sleep so that you get into that restorative phase of sleep. So it's honestly so, so important.
Yeah, there was a stage, I think it was last year or the year before. I have an Aura ring and it tracks your sleep, your heart rate, your HRV, and like so many other factors. And there was a period where I was literally so stressed out that my ring kept on showing that my restorative sleep and my REM was like shocking. Like not even my restorative was probably like I want to say an hour, and REM was probably like 15 minutes.
That's not great.
It's not great at all, like completely low. And for those who don't know what REM sleep, it's usually like during REM sleep, it's when your dreams occur as well. But we all obviously what's the word, like what I want to like describe it the most like simplest way. REM sleep probably particularly plays an important role in dreaming, but also like brain capacity, memory, a lot of like emotional processing, and like obviously like your overall health. So if it's really fucking low, of course I was feeling like shit the next day because I wasn't just getting enough sleep. And then on top of not getting enough deep state of sleep, I was in constant pain. I was stressed out. So for those who obviously don't have an Aura ring, it's just like tuning into your body and going, cool, like how do I feel today? Am I actually getting a good night's sleep?
Yeah, it's honestly so big. And a lot of the times, like we're just staying in that light stages of our REM sleep and not actually getting into those deeper. And that's as well why, like, if you're someone that snoozes your alarm, why you feel so groggy when you wake up is because you're not actually allowing a full cycle to happen. You're just snoozing it for 5 to 10 minutes. Takes
Yes.
about, I think it's like 90 minutes to get
Yeah.
through a full cycle. So if you're like snoozing for 10 minutes, like no wonder you're going to feel awful when you wake up. So if that's like your telltale sign to stop snoozing.
Uh-huh. I remember hearing that snooze rule. And then since then, literally whenever my alarm goes off, I'm just like up because I know if I snooze it, I'm just going to feel groggy for the next 90 minutes. Like, no wonder why people feel like shit all the time because they're constantly snoozing that button. And then that cycle just continues on for that morning.
Yep. And just how you start the day just sets the tone for the rest of the day. So no wonder like your habits around your sleep like have such a big impact. The same thing if you're someone that like needs to nap and you're napping for like a weird amount of time, like you're gonna get that same groggy feeling.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know much about the science around naps. But I know the later you take it, the worse it is toward like closer to bed.
That and like the duration. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, I think it's like 20 to 30 minutes is like ideal, but if you're like napping longer, then it's going to really interrupt your natural sleep as well. So
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah. Usually like that 20-30 minute block is good because as you said, like if it's any longer, it's already asleep. Like you're already in a deep state sleep.
yep. Yeah, for sure. So having a look at these things, like it's so simple, but it's so big. I think it's like some of these habits are just really underrated because we want to go for like the things that seem exciting to do and things like that. But these are simple, but so effective.
Yeah, it's so true. And like you said, it's just changing those routines around there just to be able to health, just to better achieve health goals as well. I want to dive a little bit deeper because we've spoken a little bit about like habit changes and the routines, and I love where this conversation is going. I also want us to dive a little bit. I guess we've spoken a little bit about the resistance of like how people come across with the routines, but how women are stuck in this resistance and also have this vicious cycle of self-sabotage behaviors.
I love this topic. Like, I think I could talk about it all day. So a lot of the time, what we do is so unconscious. Like, I'm sure probably because the mindset stuff is like really popular at the moment. So we know like 95 to 97% of the things that we do are unconscious. They're just automatic. They're just things that are happening. So we've only got a 3 to 5% conscious capacity to change a lot of the habits that we have. And a lot of the time we're in these cycles because they're so automatic, we don't even realize that they're happening. So for a lot of times, like imagine, you have a certain feeling or something kind of, an event certain kind of happens. Say you sleep in because you're trying to like wake up earlier, but say you sleep in. Then what happens is we feel bad because we slept in. So we feel like not too great about it. That's where all those feelings of like guilt, blame, shame, all of those come up. So then that pretty much initiates a second response. We're like, how do we make ourselves feel better about that? And they're normally like our instant gratification, like, procrastination, all of those things that make us feel good in that very moment. And we pretty much create a bit of a cycle. So that is where a lot of the times we get really stuck because we're in this cycle of like, we have an event which initiates an emotion, and then to cope with the emotion, we have another, and then we just kind of get really stuck in this loop. And that is where so much resistance comes from.
How does someone navigate around that resistance?
I think the first thing is, like we spoke about earlier, is just bringing to awareness of like what your pattern actually is, like what feedback loop are you stuck in, and what kind of are the kind of triggers or emotions that kind of lead into that in the first place. The second is like trying to notice what you believe. So for that sleep example, and the reason I use it is because like this used to happen to me. I used to believe I'm not a morning person. So I would never wake up early because like deep down I was like, I'm not a morning person. So my body at such an unconscious level, so automatically was so resistant to getting up early because it's like, that's not who we are. So I'm just not going to do that. Consciously the night before, it sounded amazing. I was like, yes, I'm going to get up early tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. But really deep down, I did not believe I was a morning person. And that's what really stuck me in the loop. So as soon as I kind of brought some awareness to like, that was my belief, that was big. That was big.
And as you said, like it comes down to changing that belief. So what helped you move past you thinking that you're not a morning person to waking up early now?
I started to rewire that belief. So I started to not tell myself I'm not a morning person. I started telling myself, and I am a morning person, and that I love waking up early. And then that combined with the feeling of actually waking up early, that really inspired that my body wanted to do it again. I was like, that felt amazing. Let's do it again. And that's what kind of initiated it. It wasn't motivation. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, I like really told myself, I was like, I believe this. And then when I started doing it, it felt so good. So I was like, of course I'm going to try and do it again. And then over time, it just got to a point where my body was like, that's just what we do. That's just who we are. And it just made it so much easier. It was really part of that. I don't know if everyone's heard of like the be, do, have. You've got to be that first, and then you do, then you can have. And that was being really, really helpful.
Let's put that into practice with in relation to self-acceptance, because I know a lot of women don't accept themselves, and they do have that self-sabotage tendency of thinking they're not good enough, or they're not strong enough, or they're not skinny enough, or whatever limiting belief they have. What are some things that we can help women realize by doing the be, do, have concept?
First is to like really get clear on who do you want to be. Think of like your future self and really get clear and visualize as much as possible everything. Like, how does she feel? How's her posture? How does she talk to herself? How does she talk to others? How does she wake up in the morning? How does she go about her day? Like, what is your ideal day? The more you can create real clarity on everything that you want, everything you want your ideal self to really look like, and then stay really committed to that vision. But every time you have a decision, ask yourself, what would that future self say? What would they do in that moment? If I had, the body I want and the confidence I want and things like that, what would I do today? And start doing that today. Don't wait to be happy down the line, or don't wait. Once I get this, then I'll be this. Be it now, and then you'll just notice that those things just start to fall in front of you.
And that concept of them wanting to do it Monday or next month or next year, that's also a self-sabotage behavior.
Oh, absolutely. It's delaying the start because it's making right now convenient. And I've 100% been there.
We all have. We all have. And I hope whoever's listening is getting like a light bulb moment going, oh, I'm self-sabotaging my behaviors or self-sabotaging my health and fitness goals, because again, we're always going to come up with a certain excuse or reason or a limiting belief by not going ahead and doing the thing.
Yeah. I decided like the biggest thing that I heard and it really hit home, it's like it's got to be a constant yes for our goals. Like a constant yes, even on those times where we don't feel good and those times where we're hitting a lot of fear, a lot of resistance, or whatever's coming up, we've got to stay committed to the yes. And they're the times that it matters the most. That's when you really call upon who do you want to be and what would she say in this moment? Like, what would she do?
Such a good concept. What's something that helps you to keep that vision in your head? What do you visualize when you have those tendencies coming up and trying to trick you?
I try and visualize the feeling. I'm like, what would it feel like? How, like, yeah, honestly, just how does it feel? Like, what are the qualities? What do I say to myself is the biggest, because I feel like we're our own worst critic. Like, what we say to ourselves, we would never say to our best friend or anyone else.
True.
So I really think about how does it feel, because that drives so much.
Yeah, I love that. And again, that takes us back into our bodies as well, because we tend to be so much in our heads and starting to trust about how we're feeling, then we're able to navigate it a little bit differently too.
Oh, absolutely. Like feeling how it feels is so big because that's like the root of so many things. Like how we feel precedes our actions. We're not feeling like doing something, like we're not going to do it. But if we can like get behind it and be like, I'm so excited and it feels amazing, we're going to do it. Like no motivation needed. We're so inspired, we will do it.
But let's talk about excitement, because we know that certain people feel as if they are excited, but also nervous. And before we started recording, we were saying how like we're feeling quite nervous but excited at the same time, but we know those state of beings are quite similar. So how does someone navigate the difference between the two?
My thought is just lean into it anyway.
Mm.
Like a mentor of mine recently said, like, go towards the fear. Like that's where real gold, like real amazing change happens. And it's been so true. Like when I reflect back on the things that have led me to where I am today, the things that scared me the absolute most have been the most rewarding, growth filled experiences. And the quote I love is, life makes sense backwards, but we have to live it forwards. And that just hits home for me so much because, like, yeah, when I look back at things, like those things were great decisions and they led me to where I am. But in the moment, I was like, this could be awful. This could not work out. This is going to be like terrible. And then I did it and I was like, that was the best thing ever. So it's practice. It's doing things, I guess, like despite the fear and having that faith and pushing into new things, stretching ourselves a little bit.
Yes, I love that concept so much, especially when you said go towards fear, because again, we have the tendency to avoid fear. And what does that do? It just remains us stuck in the same position where we're at. And most people are not happy where they're at, but they have the tendency of either complaining or making the excuses of not going and reaching that fear. So yeah, I love that. Such a good concept.
Honestly, it makes so much sense. Like if we just keep doing what we always know and we stay comfortable and things like that, we're just going to get what we always have.
Yeah.
The reason we haven't got what our goals are is because we haven't yet worked through those things that are our comfortable zone. We haven't stretched ourselves. We haven't exposed ourselves to new experiences, new feelings, or anything like that. So that's really key. Like remind yourself, like you're going to stay the same if you're not experiencing something new.
What's something that you've experienced new this year that has stretched you a little bit?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. Okay, the one that comes to mind is I launched a new course this year, which really delves into the mindset space. That has scared me a lot because I've before done the mindset stuff with my one-on-one clients, but never done something that's really like, this is going to really give some amazing growth. So to step out of something I was so comfortable with, like PT and those sessions and nutrition, I'm so comfortable with. Like, I can do it in my sleep. But this was like really nervous. But seeing like my clients go through it and seeing the women on the other side has been so amazing that I'm like, why did I not do this sooner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. That's so good. And again, it just proved you that you can do the hard shit and you're doing it.
Because honestly, that was like somewhere where my perfectionist came up a little bit. I wanted it fully complete, wrapped up in this nice bow of like, it's fully complete and it's like absolutely amazing. But at the end, I was like, no, I've just got to like release it and just keep refining it as I go. So that has been.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of coaches that do listen in onto this and a lot of business owners as well. And you made such a good point, because as the perfectionist tendencies, we're wanting things to be ready and set and clear to be able to put it out to the world. But as you said, like the longer we do that, the longer we're delaying actually putting the project out there or the course or whatever it is. What's something that helped you just release it and then work through it as you were doing that?
I realized it was actually being a disservice to the people it was trying to help. Like me withholding it and me just being like, no, it's not ready, and hiding it and kind of keeping it to myself.
Yeah.
There's so many people that it then wasn't able to help. So that really landed for me. I was like, whoa, like it's not just me trying to like make it good for people. It was actually like I was doing like my clients and potential clients such a big disservice by not putting it out there. And then refining as I go, like realistically, I'm always learning. Like I'm still reading, I'm still in courses. Like I add to my course every single day because I learn something new. And that's the amazing thing about it, is I'm so happy to keep refining and keep learning. So it's a bit of like, it almost like hit really hard that I was like, why am I not taking that approach with my course? And why am I not taking that approach with my coaching? Because there's going to be no point that it's fully done. It can't be refined and it can't be added to, and I can't learn something new or anything like that. So that's been the biggest eye opener for me.
I love that. Hopefully this is an eye opener to a lot of coaches out there to just do the thing.
100% do the thing. Take massive messy action. Just start. Just put something out there and refine it and grow and learn, because like we should never be at a point where we know it all.
We'll never be at that point anyway.
Yes.
And if you come across someone who says they do, get away from them. Standing red flag.
100%. There's so much to learn. There's so much to grow. Like it's amazing.
I love that. So good. Speaking of growing, how can our listeners get in touch with you and work with you?
So many ways. Best way, I guess, is to follow my Instagram. So it's Morgan Argles _PT. There's so much value and so much content on that page. So definitely check that out. And then if you are someone that's really into working with me, I do face-to-face in Cairns, which I absolutely love. And then like I mentioned, the course that I released this year, that is a 12-week online course with, it's so immersive. I'm so proud of it. It goes into so much of the things we've talked about today, relationship with food, relationship with body, self. And it's really eye-opening to bring forth that awareness and really dive into what has been holding you back, to then be able to move past it and achieve your goals, because that's so rewarding. Like to hit the goals, best feeling, like that's the confidence builder there.
And getting educated while doing it as well.
Absolutely. We all love that.
Yes, love that. Well, girls, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Got a few notes down from what we have spoken. And if you liked it, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Morgan, tag myself, and then let's go towards the fear, girls. Let's take that leap of faith and do the shit that is scaring the hell out of you.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.